A very warm welcome. Today we have with us Mr. Munish Gupta. He is the President and Head for Cybersecurity Advisory at Inspira. A very warm welcome, sir.
Thanks, Rumi. Thanks for the opportunity.
We would like you to introduce briefly to our CTV audience about your journey and how it has been.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rumi. So currently, Rumi, I'm working as a president as well as the global cyber advisory head at Inspira, where we are helping the Fortune 500 organization across the globe to combat cyber attacks and help with building their cybersecurity strategy. So when it comes to the industry, I'm in the industry for more than 2 decades now, where I had the privilege to work with HCL, Infosys, Wipro before in various leadership positions across cybersecurity space. And I was fortunate enough also to work across the globe in Europe, Middle East, North America, just to ensure that, sometimes the cybersecurity landscape and the threats change as per the geos. So gaining the global exposure, but at the same time leveraging the expertise to instill confidence in customers, community, to minimize the threat posture. So that's about my journey. And beside that, I'm also part of the Forbes Technology Council and Purple Book community, which is Silicon Valley-based CISO community group to create point of view about the emerging cybersecurity trends and provide insights to the community and to the industry, what should be the best way of combating cyber attacks. So this is about my journey, which has started with the very small basic piece of security 2 decades back with a firewall antivirus. And then today we are talking about AI-based or machine learning-based security.
Absolutely, sir. So it's right now we talk of the town, and we have seen such immense growth in terms of cybersecurity over the period of time. So in terms of cybersecurity and how organizations are looking forward towards it, one of the biggest challenges that we see in today's time is about protecting the data and the system. Mm-hmm. So if you can tell what organizations should take up in terms of the measures, what preventive measures could be implemented in the organizations?
Yeah, so I think that's a very relevant area when it comes to cybersecurity, because you just mentioned about the data security and how the organization can make sure that the data is secure, processed in right way. And I think for this year, it's been anticipated that cyber crime itself will create around 6 trillion of losses in industry. So it's a very vital. So when it comes to the security of a data, the first thing that what organization needs to do is knowing their data. You can only have the security or protect your data if you know your data, how it's being collected, what kind of a data you are collected, whether it's a PI data, it's a confidential data, how it's being processed, how it's being disposed of, and if you have a certain third-party vendors, what kind of access they have to that data, how they are processing it, how you are ensuring that through your contracts, through frameworks, you are restricting the access of the data, and even for our vendors, managing that data access, even if they have to process it, to ensuring that you convey the certain guidelines, frameworks, to follow that as a basic hygiene. So this is what is needed as a first step, knowing your data and then have controls to mitigate that. The second thing is that when we talk about holistic security around this area, I've seen that organization are investing heavily into technology, which is a good thing. But beside that, to ensure that we are covering it from different dimensions, organization needs to spend at the same time in process and people part. It has to be people, process, and technology. So if you're just investing into technology, but there is no clear guidelines how to use that technology, what are the process has to be followed, and if your staff, employees, or the vendors are not aware about the technology, how it has to be used, what are my use cases, it's not going to help. So it has to be a holistic approach. It has to start with the strategy, roadmap, your data model, use cases aligned with the industry you operate into, because what works in a BFSI might not work in a manufacturing. So this is, I think, what organizations should do. It has to be top-bottom approach. to ensure enough safeguards for the data.
So as you rightly mentioned that organizations are shifting towards more technology oriented, and it needs to have the focus of in terms of the usage. So digital transformation again comes into the scenario wherein we see that there has been organizations are adapting to digital transformation. So when we talk about digital transformation, so what are the major challenges and how is cybersecurity inclined towards digital transformation, and what strategies are being implemented to ensure a secure and resilient digital infrastructure?
Yep. So when we say the digital transformation or the digital adoption, so what is happening? And I think it is getting more prevalent post-COVID, where our organizational boundaries are getting diminished. Our workforce is working from home. Our vendors, contractors are working from home, and it is happening over the internet. Right, and the kind of services that most of the businesses were delivering before, they are coming online. Right, they're selling online. They have a marketplace and everything. Third dimension is that these days everybody is adopting cloud, and when it comes to digital transformations, it's more about the services that are getting delivered digitally. Take example of retail store, metaverse, everything that is coming, it's digital. So with this rapid digital transformation or adoption, what is happening? Your organization boundaries are getting diminished, right? Your attack or surface area is getting very wider. So the traditional defenses, like we used to have defense in depth or a traditional 3-tier architecture like a firewall, web gateway, it might not work in this scenario. So organization need to ensure that while the digital transformation, digital adoption is happening, they have to rethink their strategy and they have to re-architect their defenses. So I'm emphasizing on the word re-architecture, that whatever the existing architecture data models that you have, they need to do the rapid assessment to ensure that whether it's aligned with the current digital transformation needs or the architecture that they have, whether it's built for the future requirements. This is how it has to happen. The second thing is that organization need to ensure that when they're talking about the digital transformation, again, I would stress on this aspect, it has to be, again, top-bottom approach, where you start with a framework. Depending on the organization use cases, what are my data privacy requirement? What are my regulatory requirements as an organization I'm subjected to when I'm going digital, be it on a cloud or be it I'm consuming SaaS services. The third thing is that how I'm leveraging the technology. Technology is there for all to use, but it depends on how I'm going to use, be it the cloud. And again, the fourth thing is to have the process retuned according to that need for a digital transformation. So let me give you one example. So most of the organizations have an incident management process in place. The incident management process in place for the traditional environment, like where you have your own data centers, your people sit in that same corporate headquarters, might not work when you're consuming and delivering services digitally, where some of data is hosted in one cloud provider, other is hosted in another cloud provider. So what needs to be done in those scenarios is that organization need to ensure they leverage technology, be it a CASP, be it your CEM solution, or leveraging SSE, Secure Service Edge, to make sure that they're changing their technology adoption based on the digital transformation needs. And second thing is that changing the process according to that. So for example, traditional incident management process in traditional environment has to be changed for the digital environment where services is being provided by so many vendors. It's being hosted in a multiple cloud providers. So then it has to be a integrated way, leveraging APIs or other things, and then it has to be further integrated with your ITSM solution. So this is how it has to be a case-by-case basis and use cases basis. It means, so there's no one fit for all when it comes to cybersecurity. It has to be contextualized based on the organization needs, organization context, and the geo where the organization is operating.
So as you mentioned about the incident cybersecurity, so And as well as the mention which you talked about cloud technology. So we'll take first with the incident management. So we see that organization, when it comes to incident cybersecurity, organizations are like, it can happen that organization might face financial loss or a damage of their reputation. So what do you suggest, like in terms of cybersecurity incident management? So what are the suggestions you would talk about for the organizations to take up?
So I think in current scenario, when we talk about the incident management or incident response plan, it has to be very holistic. And I'm coming again to the same strategy PPT, which is people, process and technology. So when we talk about incident management, it should not be restricted to your security only or your technology risk, but your business risk has to be part of it. So it has to be based on the inputs from the business owners, the kind of business risk, as you mentioned, the financial, which pertains to availability, then the technology risk, security, ransomware we are talking about. So what organization needs to be done, again, for incident management, they have to have a holistic strategy and the framework which encompass your inputs and the needs for businesses, financial risk, and then certain key areas, which is your regulations, privacy requirements, regulatory requirements, and then your, the kind of geo you operate. There will be certain caveats that you have to adhere to. So when we talk about the first incident management framework, it has to be very holistic, where we are talking about first as a technology layer. How incident has to be identified. What is going to be my, IOCs, indicator of compromise, in those kind of things. What is my going to integrated indicator? How I'm going to use the threat intel from various sources? How I'm going to make use of various EDR, MDR solution? How I'm going to use the SOAR? So that is going to be the engine for your incident management, where you have to process a lot of data, analyze that information, doing a correlation, get that. That is just a technology piece, which is just small part of it. What more important is that how many playbooks that you have created for your organization when it comes to incident management. It means whether you have the playbook already defined for ransomware, whether you have a playbook defined for your business continuity aspects, right? If something goes down, how are you going to identify what is going to be my chain of custody? What is my retainer agreement with certain forensic provider? How I'm going to do that root cause analysis? It should not be L1, L2, L3 or the technology, but it has to be a broader incident management framework. Within that framework, the various areas, technology and the process. So I was just mentioning about the process. You have to define the process for that. And within that process also, it has to be clear demarcated roles and responsibility. In case of event also, who is going to handle the media, who has to call, depending on, the SLAs that you will define. Which is my provider, going to come immediately, securing the scene, minimizing, compromising. Another thing is that it's only possible if your top management is really aware about it.
Okay.
That why it's vital to have that incident management framework, why we have to invest into the people, process and technology when it comes to incident management. So from that aspects also, organization need to ensure that there is a proper calendar in the organization, that let's say every 6 months we are going to run certain tabletop exercise, or sometimes we call it as a simulation exercise, where all my CXOs, all people are coming, and in one day we are running those simulation activities, that in case of event, what needs to be done, in case of incident, who is handling what and what is their answer, and then based on the feedback, retune your strategy. That is at the senior management level. Second thing is that you need to ensure that your core team who's managing your incident, your L1, L2, L3, they're fully trained. And good thing is that these days technology is getting very advanced, where you have a certain simulation platforms or drills available at your disposal. So you can leverage that to augment your team capability, to identify that, leverage the technology that is available at your disposal, and based on IOC, take the next steps to minimize your threat posture. So it has to be holistic.
So in terms of like we're also talking about cloud technology. So in terms of cloud technology, while organization adopting cloud technology, what are the like how should organization have a secure and robust framework while they're adopting? So that one, if you can highlight.
Cloud security?
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to cloud security, so as part of digital transformation, I think most organizations are consuming cloud services, or they are already, moving their workloads to the cloud. So when it comes to the cloud security, the key thing the organization needs to be done, first of all, again, they have to identify the use cases. Right. It starts with how I'm going to use the cloud, whether I'm consuming IaaS as a service, whether I'm using SaaS, whether I'm going to use as a platform. So depending on the use cases, there will be security controls, security strategy has to be there. So I think in a cloud, first thing is that you need to again have to have a security strategy and the roadmap depending on the use cases. So this is how organizations have to follow the hygiene. Third thing is, or I think the most important part organization needs to invest is, because these days you're not restricted to one cloud provider. So I've seen that some of the organizations are using one cloud provider for taking the analytics services, other for infrastructure services, and third one for some specialized services. So what is needed is that they have to have the integrated view of how they're leveraging the cloud, and their strategy must be how to get the data from that, ensure that it's integrated with your incident response, and then based on that, they're managing their security posture. So it again boils down to certain solutions. So for example, these days everybody's talking about SSE, Secure Service Edge. What it means is that it ensures zero trust as a baseline framework, just to make sure that when your services are going to the cloud, you're not trusting anyone, because you don't have boundaries. It's all virtual space. So make sure that you're leveraging zero trust as a base. Then cloud security, CS, CASB as a broker. Then you need to have a cloud security gateway depending on the kind of your, the use case for the RESTful API and all that. So that's why I'm saying, it's a very vital, identify your use cases and invest into technology and persist according to that. Okay. And another key area, I think, which will be very relevant for another 2-3 years, is that when it comes to cloud security, is API security.
Okay.
Because in a cloud, either you are creating your own APIs, either you are consuming APIs, or your data flow is happening via APIs. So it's very important that you invest into the API security to minimize your threat posture while you're adopting cloud.
Again, while we're talking about technology, and cybersecurity, one of the key things we look forward is the cybersecurity threats as well. So there are different kind of technologies that are there in today's time, like AI and machine learning. So if you could let us know on the limitations and the benefits while adapting these technologies in terms of using cybersecurity.
Yep. So I think you mentioned machine learning and AI. So machine learning is being used, I think, from the last couple of years already into the cybersecurity space when it comes to the SIM or the SOC kind of setup. The organizations are already investing into creating algorithms to make sure that, the large data sets can be processed. So when we are saying AI, generative AI, it's further gonna augment that thing to make sure that organization has the capability to process large data sets with the speed, taking the IOC or the indicator of compromise or the initial sign across the state and providing recommendations. The key objective gonna be is that it's going to reduce the human error that we generally have and providing the ability to ensure that the data is being assessed, processed, to provide the actionable insights. So this is how I think AI is definitely going to augment the security teams. So again, organization need to make sure that we invest again, depending on their business use cases, created data models for AI to use. It's not going to completely, I would say, overcome the human. No, human intelligence might be needed, but it's just going to augment it.
Okay, so can you just walk us through the tech priorities over the next 5 years?
Also, tech priorities when it comes to cybersecurity for the next 5 years, I would say the first one has to be, and I think very vital in current scenario, is third-party risk management. Why it's important? Because we talk about cloud security, we talk about the digital transformation, we're talking about the AI. Organizations these days are consuming a lot of services from a lot of vendors, and they're getting their liability to secure the data. So organizations need to heavily invest into or think through the third-party risk management or even the fourth-party risk management, that how we can manage or minimize the threats or the risk might be coming from the vendor estate. That is going to the first priority. The second thing is that we need to invest into the data privacy aspects.
Okay.
So organization need to have the dedicated DPO, data privacy officer. I've seen that. I think in certain contexts it's not happening. And good thing is that data privacy bill is getting tabled into the parliament. Maybe it's going to happen in the monsoon session or the winter session. But that is going to be the major change when it comes to the cybersecurity priorities, especially in India, because it's going to put the liability or the penalties like in the tune of maximum 500 crore. So which is going to make it mandatory for each and every organization who collects, process the personal information or the confidential information to enough safeguards. So that has to be the priority of the organization anyway. Third thing is that organization, if they are harnessing cloud, invest into the API security. So these are going to be the key priorities organizations should invest into.
So how should organization ensure data compliance and data regulation?
So how to comply with the data regulation? So again, it will boil down to the governance, risk and compliance for the organization, or I would say the integrated risk management. So organization, depending on the business context, if it's a BFSI, right, banking organization, they are subjected to certain rules and regulations and regulatory requirements. They need to identify that, and based on that, leverage that stature, have a framework, ensure that they have the mechanism within in-house, like which we generally call it as integrated risk management and audit readiness assurance. That when the auditors are coming, like every year and all that, you are already ready. You follow the framework guidelines, have engine within the organization doing internal audits and all that, working on the findings, minimizing your posture. So this is how it has to be done, and invest into technology. Like we were talking about API security, AI, machine learning. Let's invest into that. It's definitely going to benefit in long run.
Okay, so looking forward, we see a lot of more technological advancement coming up. So what would be the outlook or landscape of cybersecurity in the upcoming years, and what is your suggestion towards organization? Like what should be their strategy while they adapt such kind of technological advancement in their cybersecurity journey?
So I think 5 years is going to be a long time, because these days the technology investments are happening just with the flick of eye, right? So I would suggest that 5 years is good to have a strategy for the next 2 to 3 years. But at the same time, when you are building your strategy and your architecture for cybersecurity, you have to be agile, think agile, right? So that it's easy for organization to adapt the new technology investment is happening, and from a process size also to make the necessary changes. That is one thing. And the second thing is that it has to be pluggable. Right, it should not be rigid, because that's the way we have seen during the COVID and post that. It's going to be continuous fight between the good people and the bad people, because we were just saying about the AI. If AI is going to help cybersecurity professional, at the same time it's also going to help the cyber criminals and the bad guys also, because AI is going to help them also to have more sophisticated and the targeted attack. So it's going to be continue, the fight between good and bad. So it's a never-ending thing. So as a cybersecurity professionals, we need to ensure that we are always thinking towards new strategy and the new ways to improve the cyber posture of the organizations where we're working for.
So we have to always be ahead.
Precisely.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining at our session and joining at CXO TV and sharing such insightful knowledge for our audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, CXO TV, and thanks, Omi. So pleasure is all mine. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.